late last summer, July, it's 3 a.m., and I'm awake. I don't want to be, but I'm kept up by the painful wailing of my 15-year-old dog, who, for effectively 14 and a half years, was essentially a young dog, but had very shortly before that evening woken up a very, very old dog. His name is Little Tony, and he came into my life during a time when I was dealing with an illness that at that point had an as yet unspecified amount of rest and recovery required. And the illness had left me pretty isolated and depressed, and so my doctor suggested I adopt a dog. A nice middle-aged older dog that had already had a been there, done that life and was looking for a second human home to live quieter for that second phase. So I promptly went to the shelter and I came home with a 5-month-old puppy. A Chihuahua Dachshund German Shepherd puppy. Don't think about it too hard, it's horrifying. But that is what the vet said, Chihuahua Dachshund German Shepherd. Housebreaking him, as anyone with any sense knows, was a nightmare, something I was totally unequipped to do. And for a good 6-7 months, he and I were in full struggle. He wasn't stupid. He was just stubborn. And I did everything. I read all the books. I checked all the websites. I used pee pads. I used newspapers. I used bowls of treats. I used punishment. I used clickers and clappers and zappers and thumpers and punchers. I used everything I could. I'd take him out every 20 minutes on the clock, which for me, who was supposed to be on bed rest, was a big deal. And we'd go and we'd stand out in the yard, and for 3 minutes straight, we'd stare at each other. And he would, and I would, and he would. And we'd turn around and go back in the house, and he would promptly piss on the fucking floor. He'd pee on my couch, he peed in my wastebasket, he peed in my laundry hamper. He even peed, walking right by the newspapers I'd set out, he peed on the newspaper I was reading, the one I was right in the middle of. I finally admitted that I had failed him. I was the one in control. I was the one to set boundaries. So I made arrangements for him to have a new home. And the day before my friend came to pick him up, little Tony woke me up from my afternoon nap by gently licking my hand and scurrying to the door. And licking my hand and scurrying to the door. Oh, Eureka! We figured it out! And from that point on, he and I were totally in sync. When I had long days in bed, he would jump up next to me, put his little face right on the pillow, and put his nose up to my ear and go. And I would turn over and grab his ear and go. And he'd go. And I'd go. Me giggling, him wagging his tail. And we passed hours like that. We were so in sync. One of the treatments that I did made me throw up quite a bit. And after about 2 or 3 of these vomiting bouts, I noticed that little Tony started following me into the bathroom, and when I would, he would, and I would go, stop! And he'd go, every time, for months. He also, after all that housebreaking effort, on days when I would sleep sometimes 18, 20 hours in an apartment that had no yard, he would stay right next to me, curled up on the bed. I don't know how he did it, but when I would finally regain consciousness and realize I needed to let him out, I'd open the door and he'd run out and he would pee epically. I once clocked him 81 seconds of peeing. 1, 1,000, 2,000, 3, 1,000, like 27 more times longer than that. And for a small Chihuahua Dachshund, that is a lot of urine that he held somewhere. Yeah, he was my guardian angel. And then, overnight, he woke up a very old dog. Not only did he no longer frolic or skip up the stairs or delight in playing with children, but he also became incontinent when he slept. So we had a problem because I lived in an apartment with no yard. I hit Google. I'm going to find a solution to this. And there was, plan A, doggy diapers. Not something I'd ever heard of before, but apparently lots of dogs have this problem. And all the reviews said, were raves by humans applauding the doggy diaper revolution that allowed them to live a relatively normal life with their elderly dog. So I right away went out and purchased a package of small doggy diapers. And the premise is pretty obvious. It's just like baby diapers, except they have a hole for if your baby has a vestigial tail, I guess. So what you do is you put the tail through that hole, but then it's just like regular diapers. The front comes up, and then you adhere them in right around their waist. It's at that point I realized the flaw in the doggy diaper measuring system, which is, small, medium, large, but it's missing an axis. It's missing the distance between a dog's waist and genitals. And little Tony was a Chihuahua Dachshund German Shepherd. So his torso was way longer than other dogs. So when I tried to put the small diapers on him, there was no way it was going to clear his haunches. It rode way low, but the biggest problem was the waist actually fell below his penis. So I would pick him up and he would piss everywhere, and I would scream and he would scream. We tried a bigger size, and I did put in the effort to tailor them with packaging tape, but that also failed, and in the morning I'd wake up with puddles of urine and an abandoned diaper like some weird invisible baby in my living room. Finally, what we had to do was a dog gate. And that night, 3 a.m., my dog was livid and agonizing and so deeply in pain, existential suffering. And I ran out and I stood at him, and I have to say I was furious at first. But then I realized he'd taken me through so much suffering and so many bodily functions. The least I could do was do the same for him. So he effectively housebroke me in 5 hours. Thank you.